where the competition regulator, the ACCC, has described our big supermarkets as an oligopoly. Business Editor Ross Greenwood is with me. And Ross, can you define what an oligopoly is for us?
It's so interesting to think about this because this report really hinges on the power that supermarkets have. Remember that we understand what a monopoly is, where you dominate one single entity, dominates a market, or a duopoly. Australia known as the land of the great duopoly for in the past having really two major players in key areas. An oligopoly is quite different. So if we bring up the definition, which is from the ACCC itself in its interim report, it says an oligopoly, in an oligopoly rather, firms with a significant market share have influence over prices and are expected to maximise their profits. Now, this is interesting, based on expectations of how other firms are likely to react. In other words, they use market power. Now, as you go through and have a look at this, you would expect that as a result of that, as prices have risen, and there's certainly plenty of evidence that supermarket prices have risen, in particular above people's wages, you'd expect also their share prices would have boomed off the back of this. Now, do bear in mind, until recently, stock market prices in Australia have been at record levels. But over 3 years, when you look at this, the price of Woolworths shares have dropped by 25%. Coles has risen by about 4.5%, largely because its pinch market share from Woolworths. Metcash, which owns IGA, its shares down almost 31% in that time. So that raises a question here about this report, about whether really this is about them exerting market power to push up prices, because if they had done that successfully, they would have increased profits and their share prices would have risen, or whether, in fact, again, this raises questions about the political nature of this particular inquiry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ross, the big question, though, does anything really change?
Well, the things that do change, Holly, I reckon, are in particular about the zoning. The one thing that supermarkets have been really successful at in the past is crowding out competition and taking really vexatious legal action against small players that suddenly turn up and seek to compete with them in any given regional area. And that suppresses competition. So that needs, if you like, some sort of coordination between the local, the state and the federal governments to be able to improve planning laws. Now, if we look at market share over 20 years, this is again coming out of the ACCC, you can see that Woolworths has increased market share, but largely that's come as a result of Metcash and IGA reducing over a long time its market share, and Franklin's pretty much disappearing as a force in Australia. But Aldi has emerged. Now, it's suggested now Aldi's market share is more than 9%, but Coles also has increased. So, yes, there has been some concentration of market power in Australia, but largely that has also been obviated in some ways by the emergence of Aldi as a force. So, what changes? These are the key recommendations. Clearer price signals. We've talked about the changing of the zoning laws and better price and supply transparency for suppliers. But do remember, the pricing that you see on supermarket shelves is often a dance between the supermarket and those suppliers. They work in coordination to bring out specials, to make certain pricing works in certain ways. So these are the keys to supermarket pricing and some of the things that consumers need to understand the next time they go shopping.